Hey y'all, I have been meaning to do this project for a long time. It's the bowl koozies. Um, and I'm actually going to use the same fabric. I bought a lot of it to do for gifts for people, and I figured I would, and I used dark colored fabric because of spills and things like that. It wouldn't get as dirty. Because, if you're microwaving soups or things like that, sometimes they do splatter. And yes, they are washable, but I figured over the long term that black was safer. The nice thing about these is they are reversible. So you can have it on, like this side, it's the dots, or you can have it on this side. It really doesn't matter, but they're washable, reversible, and I'll show you a couple different size bowls you can put in them. There's this size, and again, if you're picking it up out of the microwave, it does serve its purpose. And this bowl is like 3.5 inches by 4.5. It's one of the Fiestaware ones. I've never really microwaved these, thinking they'd be hot, but now that I have the bowl. And also, you don't have to use them for microwaving. I know my in-laws have used them for chili that they've made and scooped in the bowl so that the bowl's not hot if they're eating from it. Or with ice cream, cold things. This is a cereal-sized bowl. You could use it for that. No problem. It just sits. And then I think the best size bowl that I've found for it is these. These are Corelle. And it doesn't say what size, but they're like 6 inches by 3 inches deep, so they work really well for this size. And to make this, you use 2 pieces of 10-inch by 10-inch fabric, and then you're going to need 2 pieces of batting, and you want to use, and I cut it to 9.5 by 9.5, because when we're sewing it, we end up sewing all those layers together, and it makes it a little less dense, I guess you could say. It's less layers when you're doing the top stitching around it, if you just keep the batting inside your seams. And the batting you want to use, it's this Wrap and Zap, and people make those baked potato bags that you can microwave them. But it's 100% cotton, and actually on the back give you the directions to make those potato bag warmers. But yeah, so perfect for microwavable projects like insulated potato bags, casserole warmers, and more. It seems thicker to me, but that's could just be me. Like, it's more dense of cotton batting, because some of your warm and naturals and things like that are not 100% cotton, so you do want to use 100% cotton batting. So here we go. The first thing you want to do is sew an X with the batting layered underneath it. So you take your batting, you take your fabric, kind of center it up as best as you can. It's not gonna matter. I mean, you want it to be centered up, obviously, is best, but nobody's gonna see the inside of it. And what I do, because I'm not I worry about lines, even though it really doesn't matter. I mean, you can see. Well, you can barely see, but I have the X that comes across. But I mark the X so that I can sew from corner to corner as straight as I can. And I use these, and I think it's Dritz brand. They're heat fusion pen, they go away with heat, so if you iron it, they'll go away. I did learn today that if it gets to be less than 32 degrees, the line does come back, which is kind of crazy, but that really doesn't necessarily matter. So you want to do that. And I figured one of my last videos, people wanted me to sew more instead of just talking through. So I'm going to sew, and I'm really excited. I've just started using this featherweight that was my grandmom's. And I do put a couple pins. And I'll just sew one. So you get the idea, and I'll pause it and then do the other one. Because you don't necessarily need to see me sew. So that much, but you get the idea. So again, mark your X going across the two. And voila. And again, I don't want to sew that much because I've tested this. This LED light is so bright on my machine that it kind of goofs with the camera, and I really need to sew with it on so I can see what I'm doing. But yeah, you can see it's bright. But yeah, corner to corner. Over that line. And I'm just using a white thread. Both of these fabrics have white in them. I forgot to put scissors over here. I used the sewing machine this morning in a quote class, so I kind of have some of the stuff scattered. Yeah, and of course I didn't use a machine I already have set up, but I found that this is probably the better angle. I know it looks cramped. This is my Cricut, and normally I kind of sit on the other desk, but with the camera, which I guess I can show you. So you can see one line, and I'll show you the inside. But yeah, the white makes it blend in really well. But yeah, there's the one line. And then I don't know why I pinned that on the back side. And these make really great gifts for people, stocking kind of stuffer, quick gifts, because you'll see you can make them pretty quickly. And it's not something that people are out, oh, I'm seeking a microwave bowl koozie. Please let me go buy one. So kind of an original idea. I know that I just learned how to make them this year. I saw them on the internet. And it was a 3-minute video that gave 0 dimensions, so I had to pause it a few times to get the right dimensions for it. And I know you can make them bigger and smaller and customize. You can put embroidery in the middle if you really wanted. But yeah, so that's one piece. And I'm trying to, yeah, you can see the X there. And maybe I should have used a brighter color, but I probably won't end up giving this away to somebody. So, I wanted it to look its best. And again, you can see that there's the excess. And that's okay, because it will make it easier to top stitch when it comes to that step. So I do recommend that. And if you want, you can go ahead and fold these. Let me trim some threads. We're going to have to fold them in the next step anyways. So you can go ahead and fold it to get it ready to go. And it doesn't matter, I should say you're folding it like this. You're not folding it along the diagonal. But it doesn't matter which way, because we're going to have to hit both sides. In a second, so you'll see that. And some people don't have to pin them. I've gotten to where I pin more I used to be pretty lazy about it, but I pin more now. Man, this stuff is so thick. You'll see, it's thick. But these pins are just not very sharp. Okay, and set it aside. And again, I said I was going to pause it for the sewing, but I might, since it's so quick, and y'all just, all my fans just love to see me sew, I'm sure. But, pin it. And again, I pre-marked this to save time on the video. You guys can know how to, y'all know how to mark. And some people might not. I mean, I did one, and I've just found that sometimes I just don't sew that straight. And you can see, it does create the point that will be seen. So, you know, it's kind of personal preference. I feel like that if you're giving it to a non-sewer, they're not going to notice. And even if you give it to a sewer, they will probably just appreciate the thought of you making it for them, I would think. So again, let me do this really quickly. This machine is awesome, by the way. I got it for my birthday from, call it my parents, or from my grandmother by way of my parents. They picked it up from her, and it's super slick and super lightweight. They're only 11 pounds featherweights. And so I'm going to take some of these pins out. And I love this pin cushion I made. And it's super handy when you're traveling to sew. And I'm just using Aurifil thread, white thread. I really have come to like Aurifil. It doesn't seem to be as linty, at least on my other machines. I just started using this one this week. I wanted to make sure it was oiled correctly and lubed correctly, which was pretty fun. But yeah, this machine is really nice, and she kept it in really good condition. Funny, I marked it so that I'd get some straight lines, but I veered off a little. Again, it will be okay. Okay, so again, we're folding it in half. Sorry, I lost a pen. In half. And matching up the corners, which shouldn't be a problem because you are using, again, a 10 by 10 square. And then, yeah, this is, and once you do a lot of these, it'll go a lot quicker than what I feel like I'm going. So this next step, you're marking the, oh, I can't think of the word for it. I guess it creates that curve. And you're going to use, I have a ruler. It's going to be 2 inches across the bottom and one up. And I use a Sharpie, it doesn't matter, but, and I'll show you in a second. I use a Sharpie because it's bright and you can see it, and it's easy to write on the batting that way. So again, you're taking your ruler, and don't use a ruler you really like a lot because it will, I can see other Sharpie on here, but it will it might rub off on other fabric. So again, 2 inches across the bottom and one up and mark it. And we're going to sew along that line, and you're going to do it for all 4. So we're going to sew along that one from start point to end point of your line. And this I might actually pause for because you want to do all of them. And make sure you're sewing through all of your layers. I'll actually do the next one too. So again, 2 inches across the bottom, one up, so mark the one up, 2 across the bottom, and then across. Yeah, and I've had no issues with using the Sharpie. They just seem to mark better. Issues except it gets lint on the fabric, or on the tip of it. I've seen no issues using them. And I've had other people that's how they marked them. Because it's really, I've tried ballpoint pens, pencils, marking pens, chalk. All of them seem to be really difficult to do. So, you have both sides done, and you want to do it on both pieces. I'll do that one in a second. But you're going to mark and cut a 1/4 inch off this seam you just made and cut it off. And I'll show you. You can kind of see what I'm doing. I'll lower it for a second. So you have your seam, and you can see with the orange. Line it up a 1/4 inch and cut. I got in a pattern of saving these. I have a million of them and have done nothing with it. So it's going to look like that. Whoop. And I'll do this side. Same thing. Line up for your 1/4 inch seam. Cut. And bam. Voila. It's going to look like this. So I'm going to take my pins out. You open it up and then fold the other way. So I try and match up my points right here and the corners, and that's, you can tell how well you might have lined everything up. If it all matches. But yeah, so, and then I pin it again. And again, you're going to do this on the other, you can't see me, you're going to do this on the other half as well. So, match it up. And we're marking still with the 2 inches across and 1 inch up. So everything matches up. You kind of flatten it a little. And it's easy to line up your measurements on a cutting mat. but you can still measure 2 down, 1 across. I promise these go a lot quicker. Do more than one at a time, just to become a little manufacturing worker, and like assembly line it and do each step on a number of them. I always, anytime I gave them as gifts, I gave them in pairs. If you know that a family has 4 people, young kids at home, you know, make them 4 if you want. But yeah, generally the people I were giving them to, it was a couple. And you never know if people are going to use them. So if you're doing 2, you know, you won't have your feelings hurt if they don't get used that much, because you're not spending that much time. But again, I was surprised at the feedback I got and how useful people thought they were. I guess it kind of depends on people's tastes and what they're eating. Because some people eat that kind of food that would be hot, like soups and chilies, I found. But my husband and I do. And he loves having it, because sometimes we don't like making a habit of it, but you might eat in the living room or somewhere not necessarily a dining room table, and you're holding your stuff, and there you go. You can use it. Okay, and I'm going to take my pins out. Sorry, I forget that the camera, I raised it up. And we're going to repeat that step of lining it up on your seam and cutting it. I just wish I remembered the word for what this would be called. Brain freeze. And do it on the other side. And voila. It's starting to take the shape of the bowl. This is the inside. There's so many things you could do this with. If you used a thicker foam, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bowl koozie. So I'm setting that aside, and we need to do it again on the other half. So, hey, and it's nice. This is a project that does not involve ironing. I mean, you want flat squares to start, but you're not ironing along the way. Very little marking. And you could do a lot more quilting. You know, that doing the X is kind of the minimalist view of it's just holding the layers together. But if you wanted to make it more decorative looking, go for it. I have seen the embroidery with the monograms and things. But I would almost say, unless somebody requests it, you might not necessarily want to do it. Because what if somebody doesn't use something? You don't want to make yourself feel bad that you spent a lot of time on something and it's not being used. You'd love for it to, but don't make yourself sick over it. It's the thought that counts. And I've even seen these for sale on Etsy, so if you want to go that route, go for it. Because you could do, I mean, with all the types of fabric that are out there, so many things. So, again, we're going to line this up, cut off the excess. Maybe somebody can come up with a use for all these triangles. Mine are, yeah, I can see, I have a scrap well, I've got a lot of scrap areas, it's turned out, but a scrap jar. And I've yet to come up with something. So open it up. Pinch it. Match it up. I get so excited when everything matches up like it should. I did something right. And then I'm really excited I'm getting this video done. I've had it on my list for a while because I'm in a local quilt club and people have requested it, and they've done it as classes at our library and maybe even there, and a lot of people do both the club and go to the classes at the library, and you want everybody to kind of get their fair shot of seeing stuff, but at the same time, if you have groups going to both, you don't want to keep showing them the same thing over and over. So I figured that's why I had it on the list, because a number of people did want to see it. You have new people coming into the group, and might not have gotten a chance to go to the library class, and maybe they would be more apt to seeing it being taught by a familiar face. So, I marked my 2x1. This is the last set of them. Yay! We go on to the next step. This has been a good day. I've sewed most of the day, so I can't complain. Though this one will be a complete project. I still have stuff to do on the other one. Which is awesome. I've made it a mission to make this the summer of completing projects. I'm going to lift this up a little bit. Take your pins out. I feel like this is redundant, but it's kind of nice. Maybe people don't have to pause it and they can sew along with me. Or if you need to pause it, you need to pause it. Because I know the first time I made these, it was a 3-minute video, so I had to pause it quite a bit. But that's the great thing about the internet and YouTube, is you can go at your own pace. So, we have our second half done. And what you're going to want to do is put them together, right sides together. So a bowl and a bowl. But you'll see all the batting. Oh, you will see batting. So right sides together. And now we're going to put them together. So you want to pin and line up. Well, you don't have to pin, but again, I feel more confident at least trying to line up the corners. And then where we took it in. It's not the right word still, but it makes sense. And we're going to sew all the way around the top, leaving a quarter, sewing a 1/4 of an inch seam. Sorry. But we also are going to leave an opening so that we can turn it. And I'll show you what I like to do as far as that. Some of these pins, they're brand new, and you'd think that they wouldn't be dull yet. We're almost done. We're almost done pinning. we're almost done with the project. And I promise you, they go quicker than, right now we're at 30 minutes. Kind of long. But I've sewn through the whole thing, you know. Skip ahead if you want. Because some of y'all will only need the dimensions. And experiment with, you can experiment with the dimensions. And I saw one lady, she's done scalloped edges. That was really cute because this is, you know, a finished one. They're pointy. But she did kind of scalloped edges, which I think looks really neat. Depends on your audience. So we're going to sew all the way around. And what I do for my opening is I will start before one of these, and then I'll come all the way around and turn my last corner, because I feel like when I turn things, it'll make that closure easier to sew without having to turn. So again, I start before one of them. You're doing a 1/4 inch seam, but I sew down to it and pivot a little bit, and hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. But you sew down to that seam, needle down, and then pivot towards. I got a pen. Going to the corner. You can kind of, since you sewed to the corner with your X, you know at what point you pivot it. Use that as your guide. I need to make sure it goes. So again, I got to my pivot point. Take the pins out as you go if you want. Sometimes, like this next one's right in the way. Oh, would help if I put the presser foot down. Sometimes I'm particular about those corners. That my latest, I guess newest machine, when you press the pedal, foot pedal, your presser foot lowers. So I'm still adjusting to that. Have to manually do it and make sure. Okay, sometimes I start sewing all the way around and forget to leave an opening, so you want to make sure you leave that. Make sure everything's still pinned good. Lower the presser foot. And I love this machine. I'm so glad I added it to the collection. And then, okay, we're almost there. Boom. Okay. So this is my last full side. So again, I go to the corner and turn it. just enough, because you don't need a huge opening, but just enough to where I don't have to worry about sewing that corner. And I do a reverse. Okay, and I trim it. I got scissors everywhere. You can trim the corners because you will have them. And I used to be more adamant about that when I've done these where the batting was the same size as the fabric, so it'd be really thick because you'd have the 2 layers of batting and the 2 layers of fabric. So you're going to turn it. Oh, this thing was all sewn together. I just didn't get in between. Never mind. Not even trying to open it from the right opening or from the opening. There's a pin there. And I didn't leave, I left most of that side open, and between here and here, you can see I got both those. But I feel like it's easier when doing the top stitch to make sure that part was already sewed. Personal preference, again. And I wish I had tricks for doing this, but I don't. Just work with it. Yeah, I can't tell you how many I made of these for Christmas. I just discovered it right before Christmas, so that's what everyone and their mom got. Literally. My mom did get them too. All the same. 2 sets of different black fabric, but I really liked this one. I found it, it's Hobby Lobby, but it's like baked with love, serve each other, be sweet, add to friendship and whip, spread over a lifetime. So it was a really good friend fabric. And I'm sure Hobby Lobby still, you'd think they'd still have it, but that was months ago. So you can either turn it towards your dots, and you can get, if you have a stiletto, I've used the tip of some scissors to make sure all your corners are pointed out. If you have a chopstick, some people use that. Whoop. And you'll see when we have to do the top stitch, you can see why I choose to keep the opening between that rounded corner and before, because when you're pinning it, you want to make sure your batting's good, flat. You're pinning it, you sew along there, and then top stitch all the way around, and because I did the corner, I don't have to worry about turning the corner, and because I already sewed that, you don't have to worry about that looking pretty. I mean, it's helpful, but... And it's about 1/8 of an inch, and you want to make sure... Actually, I did pretty good on this one. It's always nice when things come out how you want them, especially when you're on camera filming yourself do it. So I put 1 pin in. Again, some people are confident and good, but yeah, it's pretty straight, and you just sew along there. And I backstitch it because this is the top. It's more durable. But, I mean, I should say backstitch. I will sew over the end at the end, so you don't have to necessarily backstitch it. But yeah, and I'm sewing 1/8 from the edge, and that's, I don't want to say a guesstimate. On this featherweight, that's the width of the foot, so it's handy. But I say that close, or you can do closer, because you want to make sure all that fabric's tucked in on your opening. And again, I pivot where the notches are. Pivot in the corners. Let's see if I can do one more stitch. And then we're almost done. There's some loose threads. It does make it sew a lot easier on this top stitch when you don't have all the layers of batting with it. And one more side and then around the corner. And then we'll be done. Yeah, again, I do stitch over to make it a little more secure. And I'll back stitch it too. I feel like it doesn't hurt. Trim your threads. And voila, we have our bowl koozie. I've also seen people sew an X to keep the layers together. I'll do that. I can do that really quick. I've never done it on one. The ones that I have, I did it the same exact way. I've washed them, and I've never had an issue. Oh, with washing, I don't dry them. I guess there's always that potential for shrinkage. But yeah, so you can sew the X in there, or just one line. And I'll show you just the one line. Well, see, and I don't know that I would do that because mine didn't line up. So on one side it's good, but you can see where the line didn't. So I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend doing that, but hey, I promise you I did sew along that line. You just need to make sure it's all lined up. I may take that out. But to a non-sewer, they may not even notice that it's even there, that I did that, because it kind of blends in from afar. Use the 3-foot rule. If you can't see it 3 feet away, then it's not a mistake, right? So that's how you make the microwave bowl koozies for the 10-inch using a 10-inch square. You can make them bigger, smaller. You could make these longer if you just did, you know, you could still go 1 inch up and then over, or go 2 inches up and 2 inches down. Yeah, so there's different various ways you can do it. Again, this was Hobby Lobby fabric. I've used ours. Not the super best quality, but again, you're probably going to be spilling food on it and things, and it is washable. I've washed them before, never had an issue. Just don't dry. That's recommended not to do that. And always, you can do more quilting if you want, but, you know, that's just more time. This is just the quick way to do it. So thank you all for watching and always the support. And I've really started enjoying getting to make these videos, and I wish I had time to make more. And maybe that's the goal, is to make one a month or something like that. But you can see I've got a lot of things going on in the background too, and a lot of different projects. But I figured this is a good beginner project to share with people, and easy that I could talk through, and I'll turn that off. But again, thank you all so much. And you know, we just hit the 46-minute mark, so you could do it a lot quicker, or than what I did. And I'm gabbing too, and maybe you're a faster sewer than I am, but I was trying to stay on line. And I've got this guide on here that kind of makes sewing difficult on the diagonal. It's great for piecing your 1/4 inch seams. So thank you all again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.